Well, here is the God's truth about January 6, 2021. Close your eyes. Well, here is the God's truth about January 6, 2021. Close your eyes. Go back to that day. What do you see? Rioters rampaging, waving for the first time inside this Capitol, Confederate flag that symbolized the cause to destroy America. And so at this moment, we must decide, what kind of nation are we going to be?
Today, President Biden will pose that same question to America, nearly 3 years to the day after the Capitol insurrection. He's holding his first campaign event of the new year near Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, a critical staging area for George Washington's troops during the Revolutionary War. Biden will lay out one of the core tenets of his campaign, protecting democracy from a potential second Trump term.
But today, some Americans believe January 6th might have been an inside job. In a new Washington Post University of Maryland poll, a quarter of respondents say it's definitely or probably true the FBI organized and encouraged the attack. It is not. That is a lie. Back with us to discuss, John Avlon, Lee Carter, and Errol Lewis. And Lee, I want to start there because I constantly think through when Biden was talking about democracy in the lead up to the midterms. He had two major speeches, one in Philadelphia and then one in Washington a couple days before. And Democrats were pissed. Yeah. They're like, nobody wants to talk about this. This isn't the issue. And then you looked at the crosstabs after the midterms, and it mattered in the exit. Like, it mattered in the exits. Does it matter now, given those types of numbers?
It does matter, and it matters now to more people than it did before. The problem, I think, that Joe Biden has is it matters to Republicans in a different way than it matters to Democrats. And you look at it, just some numbers. 72% of Democrats say democracy is at stake if Trump wins. 55% of Republicans say democracy is at stake if Biden wins. So when you're making the democracy argument, it actually could help the other side. Now, I'm not sure when Joe Biden is talking about this, it could galvanize his base, but it can really upset other people on the other side, because Republicans look at the threat to democracy that he poses as people saying, you must agree with me. My freedom of speech is not being allowed. You're going to judge me and all of that. And they feel very, very threatened in this moment.
It's important to note those two things are not equivalent.
Right.
Right. I mean, you know, the concern about democracy being expressed by President Biden, which you're exactly right, was dismissed by a lot of pundits who said, no, he should be focused on kitchen table issues. There's going to be a red wave coming. Biden made the democracy argument last time and it resonated. And Republicans are concerned. And we can have a great debate about liberalism on both sides and the feedback loop and all that sort of stuff. But the fact that 25% of folks think that January 6th was an inside job, that's a function of disinformation that's been propagated by Donald Trump directly. And I think the democracy argument's important, particularly with the iconography of Valley Forge, because we go through these Valley Forge moments every once in a while in our history. And this is one of them, where we do need to defend democracy. And it's not just Biden saying it. It's former Trump staffers warning that Donald Trump represents a threat to democracy.
I think one of the biggest problems I have with all of this, though, is that in having these kinds of debates, it makes it more divided rather than more united. And I know it's important that you're right. I understand that.
Okay, but I mean, I'm all for uniting, not dividing, but it means drawing the clear contrast and not saying the problem, it's divisive to bring up dangers to democracy. Because if there's a danger to democracy propagated by one candidate, it's important to call that out rather than running away from that fact in the spirit of uniting the country. You need to call it what it is.
Errol, can I bring you into this a little bit?
As a matter of, for a presidential campaign launch, it's going to do a number of things for the president. First of all, it's what he believes. Secondly, it does help to unite the country because we are united around the Constitution. And he's going to sort of talk about the rule of law and the Constitution and what defending it means. And that's what Valley Forge was about. That's what his presidency has been about. Those are the messages we're going to hear today. It's also, though, I mean, while it might inflame some hardcore Trump supporters to hear that their guy was part of an insurrection, there are also a lot of independents out there. And Joe Biden is going to be talking to them today as well, because the polls have always shown that they broke towards Biden when it came to questions of what was January 6th about. And by the way, you know, another thing he gets to do and will do today, I think, is indirectly remind us that this is a guy who's facing criminal charges. He's going to run against a person who's facing criminal charges in multiple jurisdictions. That, too, is something that independents have indicated to pollsters does not make them like Donald Trump very much.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think I know where you're going. The actual numbers, like, what are you seeing in terms of, is it because low propensity midterm voters might vote in a presidential election and they didn't turn out then, but they will now, and they don't like this issue. What are you looking at right now to pull on the thread you're talking about?
So 14% of Republicans blame Donald Trump for January 6th. By going after Donald Trump, you're actually going to galvanize these folks to say more energetically, I'm going to defend him. The other issue is, well, this is really popular. 86% of Democrats say it's Donald Trump's fault. You need to go after him. It's just about half of independents. And so you're going to split the issue. And this is a game of math and addition. He really needs to be adding to his base, not anything else. When you look at some of these numbers, this is the kind of argument that can alienate people. It can make people dig their heels in and say, I'm not sure I agree with you. And so I'm concerned that in this moment, the way that he's going after this is going to force people to say, I'm wrong. It's going to force people to say that I've aligned myself with evil. And that's something that from a psychological perspective is really hard
We
to
don't
do.
know if he'll use that kind of language yet.
We don't know if he'll use
Okay,
that kind
just
of
I
language.
just
but
I mean,
think
we're
about
waiting
some
for
of
the
the-
speech.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair.
Can I get to one thing? Because I actually do think this all threads together. There was a Trump attorney who was on Fox who was talking about the cases that he's currently facing, particularly those that have taken him off the ballot in Colorado and Maine. Take a listen.